that we've kept for all these years.
And that leads me to my next question, which is, what's in the box? What do you guys think? What's in that keepsake box that Steph is mentioning?
A sex tape.
Welcome to Cinema So Far, the podcast where good friends talk about great cinema. I'm your host, James, and today we are joined by Paul.
Most people are fudging terrible.
And we're here with Alex.
Got any cigarettes? I'd like to try one.
And we have Travis.
Well, I almost walked into the men's restroom.
Today we are talking about Fallout Season 2, Episode 4, The Demon in the Snow. And this episode was directed by Stephen Williams, and the writers that were credited are Jane Espenson, Chaz Hawkins, and Chris Brady Denton. All right, so this is a really interesting episode. We're getting kind of towards the midpoint of the season, basically. What did you guys think of the episode? I know that we all got to watch it a couple of times. What are some of your overall thoughts?
I came away from this one probably feeling like it's going a place now. There's more direction and things are starting to come together. So I would say this was probably one of the first episodes that I watched where I was like, I really enjoyed the episode at the time instead of having to push them all together.
Worked on its own.
Yeah.
I thought it was fun. I thought there was a lot of cool stuff in there that I really enjoyed. Some game references, some new creatures, some good comedy, and I also, some relationship development points. I think that I noticed between Lucy and the Ghoul that I was really appreciating as well.
I like how this episode unfolded. It really kept me engaged, and a lot of funny, entertaining moments that really stood out. And even watching it back a second time, and here as we've been talking before the call, even laughing about some of the lines still, I think we're going to really surprise y'all with this time.
Yeah, a lot of really good lines in this episode, and the comedy is there. It had me laughing pretty much the whole way, but I also think like the action was really cool, and I have a lot of questions, not so much about the show, but a lot of my questions just came around like something you were saying, Paul, like what, or maybe you, Alex, like what was in the game, and why? How did that work? I found myself as someone that has never played Fallout wondering a lot of those questions about the world and about, just the gameplay. But man, what a great episode. And for anyone that is just watching us for the first time, what we're going to do is talk about this episode in full. We'll go scene by scene with a recap. We'll also talk about some of our top moments, some of our favorite moments of the episode. And we will pick our own MVP for the episode. And that's, the MVP is just someone that we really think crushed it as far as performance or character moment and maybe what really moved the plot forward. So that's what we'll get into. And to start off, let's talk about the name game here. There might not be a whole lot of different ways to look at the title of this episode, The Demon in the Snow. I can think of one.
I could think of a few.
Yeah. What else you got?
So the definition of there's the literal demon in the snow, which we'll find out in a second. But demon in the snow is a kind of a saying, right? And as I've written down, it's a hidden, rationalized form of evil that operates under the appearance of purity, necessity, or moral. I can't read that moral cleanliness. Sorry. So sort of like when you think of a demon in the snow, what it brings to mind for me is like Hiroshima and Nagasaki, right? It was obviously an evil act, but was it necessary, right? Or, there's that kind of the ultimatum question that you get of like, would you kill one child to save X amount of people, right? That is a kind of a demon in the snow ultimatum. So
Interesting.
I think if you think about the episode, you can kind of see some of those going in and out with each kind of faction or, having to make certain decisions that could ultimately, change the fabric of the wasteland.
Yeah, I mean, I was taking it maybe a little too literally with just,
Well, there's obviously something.
Yeah, there's obviously this monster that resembles a demon that is up there in Alaska, and that is the first scene. But yeah, I can't think of any other real interpretations of it. What about you, Travis or Paul? Anything else come to mind?
Well, I mean, based on what Alex just said, I feel like maybe it relates to the Quintus and that whole group of, they're trying to do what they think is the best to preserve the New World or whatnot. And, Quintus goes off on his own rant about, this is what the purpose is, and I should have taught you better, and you're not aligned with our goals, et cetera, when he was talking to Maximus. So I think maybe after Alex's explanation, maybe it has more to do with that.
I'm inclined to agree. I think everything he just said, but if you wanted to narrow it down to one ultimatum or one decision that would have to be made, that demon in the snow would be whether or not to kill those kids because they're ghouls and abominations, or to let them live because they're children.
Right. Or maybe whether or not to kill Quintus based on, what's going to happen next. Right.
Or take the cold fusion and who to give it to. There's a lot of ways you can skin that cat there. And then, sorry, I'll let Travis go before I say anything else.
All right, you're good.
He was just going to talk about pee in the snow. That's a demon in itself.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. The other thing I was going to say was, we could look at that with Lucy, right? Kind of like she took a wild turn this episode, and kind of how she values life and things like that. And then just that kind of predicament that she gets in with the Buffout. So I think there's a few different ways that we can definitely look at that, the demon in the snow, as it appeals to the or applies rather to the episode. But yeah, mainly it's the demon in the snow. It's kind of like something dark that's covered in something white is the overall kind of vibe of that.
And actually for me, I think it could relate to cocaine, the demon in the snow. Cocaine Blues is a track that comes on during the episode. Bluesy's on drugs. I'm just saying.
The snow is the demon.
Just saying.
Yeah, and I think we can get to it later. I got something brewing in my head about the vaults, and I think it will click when we talk about the vaults. But I think there's some things going on with the vaults too that they're on the tip of my tongue. I can't quite place yet.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and get there and start off with our recap today.
Okay, so the episode opens with them being on the Alaskan front. It's Coop and White Knife, and they're in Alaska. And White Knife's suit is malfunctioning. And Coop radios back and says, hey, we're having some issues. Can we return? And he is told, no, you will go forward with your mission. And so he doesn't tell White Knife this. He tells White Knife to turn around and go back. He will follow him shortly, but what happens is essentially Coop, his suit goes on the fritz then, and he falls over. He's basically immobile, can't do anything. The Reds are coming, and they're going to either capture or kill him. Looks like they're going to kill him. And then the Deathclaw monster, or maybe the demon in the snow, comes and basically takes care of all the Reds in the area. And one funny thing was right before they were going to, capture or kill Coop, the Reds said okie dokie, which I thought was pretty humorous at that time. And basically, after Deathclaw wipes out those people there, the Reds in that area, Coop gets a message over the radio that says, hey, we did it. The Reds are in retreat. Congrats. And Coop says kind of under his breath, no, we had nothing to do with that. And that was kind of the first scene.
Yeah, so that I think that scene was pretty awesome for a few different reasons. The one thing I wanted to point out was, or the first thing I wanted to point out was, like, White Knife leaves, Coop is there, right, by himself, and he's hearing this monstrous howl on the other end of the wreckage. And my first thought was, wait, like, this is pre-war. What monster could be out there, right? Or this is pre-Fallout, like, what monster could be out there? And then, of course, the reason his suit malfunctions is actually because the Reds start shooting his legs. They're shooting his legs out, and he falls out. And then as and they seem to be Chinese Reds, like Chinese communists, and that's what. So they come up and they're speaking Chinese, and as they're talking, he's kind of looking off in the distance, and he's seeing this like demon come closer and closer and closer. I thought that was a really cool deal.
Well, I just really liked the scene because it was a callback to the conversation that Cooper had with Bud Askins, right? And he was telling him how much he hated that suit and how much of a problem it was for him and his men. So just to actually see that, unfold wasn't something I was expecting. It seemed kind of like a throwaway line at the time, but it was really cool to see it.
Yeah, your suit's flaws have killed a lot of good people, basically, what he was saying.
What I was going to say was about the Deathclaws, or the Deathclaw, it was that it gave you, like, in the lore, it's like, oh, this was a pre-war, mutation or a pre-war creation. So I thought that was very interesting that they stabilized that. It's like, okay, like, well, this is, everything else seems like it was post-war, vault, mutation, stuff like that. And they're solidifying the Deathclaws, which in the game is like one of the scariest, like most, like, you don't mess around with creatures. You find them walking in the mountain, you better turn around because you're unless you're really, really maxed out, you're not going to be able to survive. And I love that they gave this creature that same kind of ominous presence in this film that they did the game.
And I like that you bring up the game aspect of it too. And I still haven't played it yet, but in learning more about the lore, in watching some other channels, and like heavy spoilers, shout out to them. But he said that the Deathclaw was in fact kind of created, bred before the war as a super mutation for the war. And in doing so, they might have, not trained it, but give it an ability, like the sense of it. I don't know how he kind of like shaped it to know that, oh, these are the Reds, and Cooper is an American, or maybe the gear, because he just sniffs him. He doesn't attack. From what we've seen so far,
and that might be a spoiler because they might reveal that later in the season. But yeah, that's kind of the deal with heavy spoilers, is they're kind of going off of stuff that hasn't even happened in the show. But yeah, that was interesting. I did wonder about that. The question that you were asking, Alex, around like, well, wait, this is before the fallout. How is this mutated creature here? But that was a question I had. And then also, why did he leave Cooper alone? And so I'm guessing we're going to find out more about that. Maybe it will actually be revealed there. But yeah, why don't we go ahead, Alex?
No, I was going to say real quick, I have a quick theory about that just based on what we know from this show. I'm not talking, this isn't even game lore at this point. In the game, I know the Deathclaws. I'm aware of the Deathclaws. I hate fighting them. They're scary. They're lovely, but I can't say for sure what the lore is in the game. I don't know if I've ever come across like a definite origin story for them. I always just assumed they were, the Deathclaws, and that's what they were. But to the show, there are mind control devices, right? And then there's a Deathclaw that seems to kind of be sentient enough to know who to kill and who not to kill, right? So maybe there's a connection.
Maybe there's a device back there.
Yeah,
behind
like
the
that.
horns.
Maybe it's under the scales or something. But
yeah.
So yeah, that was my just quick,
interesting
headcanon.
Yeah, so next scene, they end up back at the bottle cap mining operation with the children, and basically Maximus says that he's been tracked there, and Thaddeus off the bat wants to run. He starts making plans to get out of there as quick as possible, and Max says, no, I want you to wear the armor, and you're going to portray yourself as Xander. And I felt like at this point, Maximus was showing some integrity because he was trying to protect the kids. And then Thaddeus says, hey, I'm really good at running away. I should, we can do that. And Max is like, no, you need to get in the suit and let's go with this plan. And so Thaddeus basically struggles mightily to act as Xander and kind of can't get out the door, et cetera, but ultimately they get on one of the, I don't know what they're called, the helicopters, and they head back to where Quintus and the main ships are. One thing I thought was interesting that Max walked out without a suit, and there was really no explanation about it. And I don't know if it really meant anything or not, or if, maybe that has something to do with the game of people being able to get into other people's suits and stuff like that. But I thought that was an interesting thing that happened at that point.
I have a theory about that because I think sometimes in movies or TV shows, a character will like let's say they're like in a war or something, they might take off their helmet, and it's usually just because you need to see the actor, you need to see who's who, or you need to see their face, and so that's what I was thinking. I was just thinking like, okay, because he didn't have to exit his suit to talk to Thaddeus either, but he did.
Well, but I think that was the plan, right? So he
Well,
was
I'm just
exiting the
saying.
suit so Thaddeus could get in it.
No, there was an extra suit
Right.
that
Well, I
Thaddeus
think
got into.
there's a little little bit of mix up. There was two suits. Xander and him flew there. He wore the extra suit.
Mm-hmm.
Maximus did, okay? And then Xander's head was crushed in,
Right.
okay? So they couldn't use the head piece on that one. And Maximus's suit is back in at Area 51.
Well,
Yeah, because remember when he got on the vertibird the
So
first
I was
time?
assuming it was the extra suit that Maximus was wearing.
It was, yeah.
And then
'cause-
he had Thaddeus put it on because he couldn't. They're just trying to hide the fact that Xander's not there. Like,
Because if you remember last episode when he went off with Xander, Xander said, "Leave your suit behind because I've got an extra one for you."
oh, okay, so you're right. So he gets out of the suit, gives it to Thaddeus, and then Xander just stays in that suit with the crushed head. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
they just left him.
So ignore that whole theory I just said.
That was a fairly short scene.
Thaddeus was hilarious when he was
Yeah.
hopping on the vertibird when he's like, "What's up, big boy? All right, let's get out of this shithole."
Yeah.
He's like stumbling and like falling in the helicopter.
Yeah, and
Oh my gosh.
we'll see more of it whenever he gets back to the Brotherhood and is still in the suit. But yeah, the contrast is awesome.
And they confirmed that it was the Sunset Sarsaparilla factory, like I was curious of.
They did confirm that. Yeah.
One more thing I gotta say on that: sarsaparilla is root beer. It's just a different word to call root beer. Because I know me and you and Paul were talking about it the other day. I was at Cracker Barrel and it's like sarsaparilla, the father of root beer. I'm like, oh, so yeah, you're right, Paul. It is sarsaparilla root.
Yeah, so the next scene starts out with Lucy with an IV in her, and she wakes up at the New California Republic where they are getting ready to vacate the premises, and there's only the two of them there. So essentially, they start talking about, what happened at, what is it called? I always want to say White Sands.
Shady Sands.
Shady Sands. So basically, one of the ladies at the New California Republic says some asshole saw signs of civilization after 100 years and burned it down. And Lucy's response is, most people are fudging terrible. So Lucy and the ghoul are there, and they ask her what her intentions are, what she doing. Does she want to join the New California Republic because she has the same goals that they have? And she says she's looking for someone who hurt a lot of people, and she's going to bring them to justice. And then as she walks out with the ghoul and they're talking about the New California Republic, etc., Lucy says, all I see is more people with matching jackets. And that kind of ends that scene.
I love that she said that. And you could even see the ghoul look at her after that with like pride, like, okay, you're learning, kid. But that was a really interesting scene. Not only is it good to see Uncle Rico and he's actually talking, but you really get a better sense of the NCR, and what they're about and how they do seem like the good guys, right? Like they're there to help. But I think the standout line, and this was in the trailer, the standout line for me is when Lucy says that she's looking for someone, the lady from the NCR says, someone you care about or someone you hate. And man, I really wonder, like, what do you guys think she's thinking at that moment? Like, which side do you think she would lean towards on that?
Well, I mean, I think her answer was perfect. she's looking for somebody who hurt a lot of people. So she's not necessarily making that judgment, but, I think she would fall on the line of her dad's a bad guy. So
she would make a good lawyer. I mean, she deflected it pretty well.
Maybe hates. Yeah.
Yeah, I think she's still conflicted on it. That's why she kind of took that pause and kind of looked away a little bit. I think that, she's like, she has every reason to hate what he did, but it's still her father, so she loves him. Another thing I wanted to point out is what I said earlier about, we're talking about what we liked about the episode. Well, I mentioned specifically like Lucy and the ghouls kind of like relationship dynamic kind of changing. What I liked is during that point where she's having that conversation with the NCR, the ghouls kind of like fishing, you know what I mean? Like the first thing he says, it's all in the past, isn't that right, Lucy? And then later on he goes, "Oh, what a great question. What say you, Miss McLean?"
Yeah.
He's like fishing. But then once she says it, she mentions the line of justice. I'm going to bring him to justice. And you can see it pans back to the ghoul and he's got a side smirk going on because he's like, and I think there's a sense of kind of like admiration that he has that even after everything that she just experienced, she still has some sort of sense of justice. So it's kind of like half admiration, half like, are you kidding me? And then that kind of, when that leads us back to like the end of that scene when she talks about all the jackets, she comes from a uniform, right? She comes from the vault uniform, and to see her kind of be skeptical about that now is like, okay, well, I'm still golden rule girl, but like obviously just because you have some sort of civilization and some sort of suit a uniform doesn't necessarily make you a good person. And then just one other thing I wanted to point out was like the fact that they actually had like a legitimate loot drop. They're like that Rodriguez from the NCR is like, "Hey, I got all this gear," and it opens it up.
Yeah.
We can't take all this with us. Take what you want. She gets stacked.
But that was kind of gamey to me, It's like, oh, here's a loot drop for
That's
you.
freaking awesome.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking as well. But yeah, that's a great point, Alex, about the, matching jackets thing, because she's definitely from a place where everyone's wearing the same thing. It really shows the growth, right? Shows how she's adapting, she's changing, and her views are changing as the longer she's in the wasteland.
You think she's going to change clothes?
Never.
I feel like she has to eventually, or maybe she's gonna put some other stuff on it with it. But like she's been wearing that same bloody tank top since last season. I'm just like, I don't know, man. That's gotta stink.
She's got to be a little ripe at this point.
Got to get back to the goody mart, super duper mart. I said goody last time.
All right, you want to go to the next scene, Paul?
Yep. So we go back to Vault 33. And there are announcements and discussions about they're having water issues, water rationing, and Raj is having his little group meeting with, I don't remember the term that they were talking about it, but people who are with incest or whatnot.
Incest survivors.
Yeah.
And
incest survivors group or incest support group.
And so they're out of water. So Raj grabs the water containers and goes and fills them up. And Betty stops him and they get an argument. And he says, hey, I have a snack budget and I'm going to use it. It's written into the articles that we follow. And my group is growing with all the inbreeding, essentially. And at the meeting, there are a lot more people at this time in Raj's group.
What I love about and you'll see this throughout the transitions back and forth to the vaults, but we're seeing in real time how bureaucracy is failing under pressure. Because one of the things he said, he's like, this is written in the bylaws, so you can't do nothing about it. Right. And then we'll see Betty kind of later on have to deal with some issues where bureaucracy is also kind of getting in the way, as well as Woody.
Yeah, I was feeling that same way, Alex. Like, man, I was really I really did not like Raj in this moment, because he's
Is it Raj or Reg?
Reg. Yeah, you're right. Reg.
Yeah.
He's hiding behind the bureaucracy, and anytime someone is just so blinded by those, just so rigid in that thinking, regardless of what tragedy or scarcity or, whatever's happening around you, to just have those blinders on just is infuriating to me. I don't know. How'd you guys feel about it?
It's a shitty way to run your life, I think, of, well, I'm allowed to do this, so I'm going to do it, whether or not it's for the betterment of the group or whatnot. But, water is quite the topic in this episode also, because as we'll find out, Betty is starting to get pretty nervous about the water source and rationing.
It actually reminded me of a Mario Puzo quote where he says, whoever appeals to the law against his fellow man is either a fool or a coward. And so it's kind of like there's this, you're hiding behind the red tape. You have the bureaucracy. Since it's written in stone, you must be legalistic with it. Or you can be, rather. Not that you should, right? There's no, I guess a decent person would say, okay, like, I know this is in the bylaws, but for the sake of everyone, I suppose, for the sake of everyone, despite this nice little fun party group I have of incest survivors, like I should be kind of, sacrificing the attention I'm getting now for the betterment of the whole vault.
That's, Reggie's trying to use this crisis to, gain, I guess you'd say, political influence over the other dwellers, because he's like, well, look how popular it is, and she's like, it's just a snack club.
Well, and potentially that could be one of your other demons in the snow, right?
Thing is, I don't even feel like it's political influence. Like that, it's so much more petty than that. You know what I mean? Like, it just seems like he just wants to be liked.
Exactly, I agree.
And he's using this as a way to do it. But I was kind of surprised that Betty took it.
Right, but he's talking about her approval ratings, and like, potential. Well, we'll see later. Kind of.
Yeah, but what is modern politics if not a popularity contest, though, right?
Exactly.
I mean, to her, it might be politics, but to him, it's like, oh, everybody likes me because I have the snacks and the water,
I hear you guys. I just felt like he's not thinking that far ahead. Like, it's literally just the surface level of, I want these people to stay in this group because it's fun for me. And
no, that's what I'm saying. I'm agreeing with your point. I'm saying from his perspective, even the political part of it's not what is driving him. It's the popularity part of it. I think Betty might be more on the political end.
Was anyone else surprised that Betty kind of just took it? Like, I didn't even see like a knowing, kind of like, look in her eye of like, oh, all right, well, I'm going to get you for this. Or it just seemed like she just kind of just accepted it. I was like, oh, well, my hands are tied.
I think she seemed pretty pitiful. I agree, but at the same time, I think when we're going to find out here that she's kind of in a deeper waters than she probably wants to be in. So
deeper panic.
Yeah. So I think maybe the best thing for her to do in her mind is just to kind of let it be the way it is now until there's a solution. Maybe, it is definitely not characteristic of kind of how she has been since the last season.
Okay. So next scene we go on, and basically Lucy, she seems like she's feeling pretty good. She's with the ghoul and kind of acting a little goofy. And the ghoul tells her, basically, hey, you are now addicted to drugs. You were on drugs for the last 2 days. And so you have two options. You can either cut yourself off and suffer for 4 or 5 days of withdrawal, or what the ghoul prefers is to keep taking the drugs. So ultimately, Lucy says, well, I have this mission to handle and I need to get to my father, so I will keep taking the drugs because it helps the greater good and help finding her dad.
No peer pressure necessary.
Is it just me or is the air extra itchy today?
Yeah, she started off doing that Tyrone Biggums.
Am I dying?
Am I dying? Yeah, I thought that was really hilarious. And just so anybody who's wondering, the drug that they were giving her was called Buffout in the video game. That drug is boosts strength, endurance, maximum health, and when you take it, like you rage, like you just, and then you're like you're just like going super crazy, and then like you just like super strong. It's almost like, I guess, the Fallout equivalent of PCP. So
jeez.
Yeah.
That's a hell of a drug.
Yeah, that was a really funny scene. I was wondering what Buffout was because I had to like put the captions on to really hear Walton Goggins say the word again because I could not pick it up the first time, but good to know.
But I mean, she did what most any normal addict would do and just say, well, then I hereby quit drugs. That would be normally what would happen. You would just quit.
Yeah, to just stop all at once.
Especially with
That didn't work.
Lucy's attitude of optimism at all times.
Well, if there was going to be any drug that you take for optimism, it would be Buffout.
Yeah.
All right, let's keep going.
Okay, so next we go back to the common, no, not the
Yeah.
Commonwealth.
Sorry,
it's not the Commonwealth.
Yeah, not the Commonwealth, but the
Area
Brotherhood.
51.
The Brotherhood. Okay, so we shoot back to the Brotherhood, and I can't remember the guy's name. I'm sorry, I'm terrible with names. His assistant or whatever, his friend who he took his place of, says, the Commonwealth's going to kill us. And Max says, well, not unless we stop it. And he has a plan for that. He's going to kill Quintus. And in this scene, it's pretty funny also that Thaddeus is still stumbling around in the suit. He's the only one wearing a suit in the whole place. And with the voice coming out, that is the funniest part of the show to me, is when they talk through the suits, because they sound just like such bros. And so Thaddeus continues to stumble around in the suit, and he basically sits on a table, and we go on to the next scene.
Pretty funny. He doesn't realize talking to himself is talking out loud.
Over
Just
and over
easy,
again.
calm down. All right, nobody will know.
It's like, Xander, you're Xander. Xander, yeah, you're Xander.
And I was just wondering, how is he going to eat? He's like, he's about to sit down to eat. How? Like, you can't open the mask, or the helmet. But
Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah, they do all, when they're in the suits, they do definitely sound like they listen to Pennywise.
What's wrong with Pennywise?
Nothing. You just said bro anthem. Get it?
Bro
Oh, sorry.
him.
Yeah, bro him, brother. Yeah.
We'll edit that out. I'm just kidding.
I thought if it landed right, it would have been funnier, but all right.
We go to where the people who, the managers basically escaped, and they're now outside of Vault 31, and they're raiding a food truck. And they are getting all these supplies from this abandoned food truck. And basically the assistant to Bud talks about future Enterprise adventures, and that what the plan for Vault 32 and 33 were. And Bud, is it his name Bud?
Norm.
Ronnie.
Norm.
So
Norm.
Yeah, Norm and Ronnie. So Norm is Ronnie's was Bud assistants.
Norm is trying to give out as little information as he possibly can, because he knows he's going to reveal himself if he starts talking about plans, et cetera, but I believe this piques his interest. And then Bud's assistant says, a phase 2 is very important to the experiment. And he's looking at him like, I want to know what you're talking about, but I don't want to engage you because I don't want to answer any questions. So he won't even tell him what his name is or anything else.
I mean, I love how he's just maintaining authority, and he is really smart not to give himself away. Almost like night and day different than Lucy. I love that scene, to see Norm, like, well, just this whole season so far, he's just been kind of like holding authority, kind of, being really smart about things. I had a question for you though, James, because I was wondering, the bridge that they pointed to, that they said that the young middle manager had drove over just quote unquote a week ago. That bridge looks familiar, and it's obviously in LA. Is that the Pasadena bridge, like the Pasadena Suicide Bridge?
That's a good question. I don't know.
It looks like it.
It did look a little bit familiar, but I'm not sure.
You might have to look that up. Tell us in the comments.
And I thought at one point when they were raiding the food truck, I thought, this is so ridiculous. How would there be food available still, this long after, et cetera, et cetera? And then I was like, they're pulling that out of the video game. Now, I'm sure in the video game you can walk around and find a food truck that's stocked with supplies. So
100%.
that made sense at that point to me, which was one of those game parts that they brought into the show.
Well, and there's also you could my theory is that since they basically got really close to restarting civilization with Shady Sands. So I believe in Shady Sands there was new products being shipped and sent and things like that too. So a lot of that could be post Fallout production.
I mean, I don't know if they're making boxes of pasta at Shady Sands, though.
No,
it's the best macaroni around, though.
I mean, we saw a Sunset Sarsaparilla factory. Why wouldn't they have boxes of pasta?
But I think that was from the before times, right?
But yeah, and then also just because the bomb hit, it didn't radiate everything, right? So there's places where the bomb didn't actually reach as well.
True.
So that's another way to look at it.
True.
But yeah, in the game, I guess it makes sense in the game because the game you'll come across stuff that's like not radiated at all, and then you'll come across stuff that like you have to be careful eating because it is radiated. So probably just depends on where it's at.
And what a trip to like get hired at a place. You go there for your job interview, you get hired, and a week later you're frozen in a cryo chamber.
Wow. So that's what they were doing, was interviewing people and selecting people.
You got the job, you can get frozen until it's your time to get thawed out, and then you can run the vaults.
Yeah.
Crazy.
That was the purpose of that. To your question, Travis, that was the whole purpose of Buds was these are the people like, oh, you're a great candidate, like you're going to be the future, so we're going to freeze you and put you through.
Back in the vaults, Woody goes into Davy's unit. And Davy says, "Hey, what are you doing? What are you doing in here? You must have taken a wrong turn," which I keep doing. I can't keep my rights and my lefts straight, essentially. And what Davy wouldn't do to get back to Vault 33. And then we see Steph and Bets talk about A Brave New World. And Bets says, "Hey, Steph, we need to cooperate. That's the only way we're going to survive." But Steph is saying she doesn't want to share her water. She's just trying to survive. And they have different ideas on how to do that. And she'll be more than happy to discuss a trade. But otherwise, she's not interested in sharing any water or other resources. And Bets at some point says, if you don't help us, we won't have Vault 33 anymore. So, Beth says, "Hey, I made you an overseer because I thought we would agree to cooperate." And Steph basically shuts her down, says her baby and Vault 32 is all that matters. The company's not coming to save us. And so Steph says, "We're not giving you access to the water unless you bring me the lockbox that Hank had. And then they can talk about a deal." Well, Woody, in the meantime, is overhearing Steph's and Beth's conversation. And Beth says that she's being held hostage by Steph. Steph is very nonchalant, couldn't care less, and says, "Excuse me, I have a lot of work to do." And that's when Beth says, "If you don't help us, Vault 33 will be no more." And Steph says, "Hey, the experiment's over. We need to make our own decisions now." And Woody overhears this whole discussion.
Yeah.
What do you call that? Draconian or Machiavellian? It's one of the two. The way that Stephanie's acting.
Maybe both. I mean,
maybe both.
Yeah, because I was wondering, okay, is this some directive that Steph has that no one else is privy to, or is she just kind of doing the opposite of Reg, where she's saying, "You know what? We had all these rules and this bureaucracy and red tape, but all that's out the window, and now it's every man for himself," kind of mentality. So I was just wondering, what do you guys think? Is she going rogue, or is this based on some information she has that no one else does?
I have a theory, but I want to point out first, I don't think you mentioned this, Paul, but one of the things that they were having in their conversation when Reg overheard it was they were talking about the fact that Vault 31 was empty. and all the cryo chambers were gone. So at this point, like it's not just, hey, we're running out of water. It's, hey, Vault 31 is also empty. My theory is, I think Stephanie, there's 2 points to have. One is that because she talked about how she was from Vault 32 originally, or Vault 31. Was it? Either way, she came from
31.
the same vault that.
31.
Yeah, so she came from Vault 31 originally. So we know at this point that she was, cryo-engineered. She's probably middle management buds, and she also, had a deeper relationship with Hank, right? There's been allusion to that. So maybe it's something that Hank put in as a contingency plan, like, hey, if anything happens to me, I need you to do X, Y, Z. Or the other option is Hank's out of the building, so I'm taking over and I'm going to be Queen Bee here. Where Betty is still just kind of like, no, I still believe in the plan. Even to the extent of even after she's saying like, our company is not going to help us anymore, right? They don't exist, but there still needs to be some semblance of order that we've kept for all these years.
And that leads me to my next question, which is, what's in the box? What do you guys think? What's in that keepsake box that Steph is mentioning?
A sex tape. Nah, I haven't the slightest clue, to be honest.
I would guess maybe some directives towards what to do at the end of this or whatnot. Why was Steph brought out of the Vault 31 at a time? Did they know that she was, and her in conversation with Betty was, hey, I brought you out of this so we would cooperate. Well, I made you the overseer of Vault 32, so we would cooperate. But how many people from Vault 31 are in Vault 32 or 33? That's something I'm not sure of, if there's any other middle managers around.
Yeah, so far it looks like we've already covered all of them, but as we're finding out, that Stephanie obviously has something deeper going on, right? I would be interested to know the same. But I wanted to point back to what I mentioned earlier when we were talking about Reg and Betty. This is another sign of bureaucracy is completely failing. It's all falling out from underneath them. It was never, and to me, it seems like it was never sustainable in the first place. This perfect utopian idea that these corporations had was doomed to fail from the very start.
Well, I think we have to find out what the experiments are. Why are they over or whatnot? And was it that, hey, people are just starting to figure out there's something else going on here, and that's changing all the plans at this time?
Yeah,
Could be.
Okay, so back to Vegas. We see Lucy and the ghoul, and the ghoul is looking around suspiciously. Lucy says, hey, what did you expect? A welcoming party? And he says, yeah, I kind of did. And then we get our first view of the Elvis ghouls, yes, which I think was hilarious. And so
the kings.
The ghoul wants to walk around and take a different route because he's suspicious there's something going on here. And basically, Lucy just says, no, let's go. I'll be friendly and we'll be fine, as she usually does.
She's all hopped up on Buffout.
Starts walking down the middle of the street, and the Elvis ghouls are basically after her. And so Lucy goes forward with her cache of weapons and starts blowing away Elvis ghouls. And at first she blows off the bottom of one of their legs, and she looks shocked. The second shot she takes, she looks a little more comfortable. And after that, she looks like she's having some damn fun blowing away the Elvis ghouls.
What's the plural for Elvis? Is it Elvi?
Elvis.
It's Elvis impersonators.
What a cool scene. And I didn't realize, like, I think in the trailer when I first watched it a few months ago or whatever, like, I thought these were ghouls kind of like Cooper, where they were kind of, still cognizant and chose to be Elvis's. But no, this is like an Elvis gang that turned ghoul, right? Is that right, Alex?
I think so.
Yeah,
I believe so. If I remember correctly, in New Vegas, they're just a bunch of greasers that dress up like Elvis, and the gang is called the Kings. obviously, because Elvis is the king, and so they all kind of dress up like Elvis. I believe that is the case. I think so, because obviously those ghouls, as we saw them, would not be able to function as a gang. I don't think.
And Lucy says afterwards, "Hey, they're just ghouls, right?"
Yeah, they're just ghouls, right?
She says this to the ghoul and then gives him a thumbs up. This is where she says, "Hey, now I want to try some cigarettes." And the ghoul tells her, "Hey, one addiction at a time."
Yeah, I love the dialogue in this whole scene, and I wanted to point out. So I don't, not to disagree with you too much, but I don't necessarily think she was like, "Oh, we're gonna be nice." I think she was so hyped up on Buffout, she's like, "Let's just go, let's get it done. My dad's right over there, let's get it done."
Yeah.
Because when she said that, the ghoul's like, "That's just the drugs talking," and then he said to himself, "Truth be told, I kind of like it."
I love that line.
It's almost like she's like,
or I like what they're saying.
she's on that Breaking Amish show where like once she's ready to kind of like set aside how she thought about things before, she's just gun ho about it, and she's
not our Rumspringa.
You know what I mean? Like she's just going for it and loving it. Honestly, it seemed like she was genuinely enjoying shooting all these ghouls.
Well, and I think, to go back to Buffout, I think that does have a lot to do with Buffout, because Buffout, and the sense of the film is supposed to get, kind of break through her inhibitions and just let loose. She's just straight action at this point in time. And then, like I said, it is kind of like the Fallout equivalent to PCP, where you're just like, you feel like you're, extremely powerful, just unbreakable. And I think that's what we saw with her. And I think that the irony was that at this point in time, the ghoul was the kind of the voice of reason. He's like, "Hey, hold on, let's slow down," And then she's like, "No, let's go." And she starts blasting people. Like, the ghoul didn't kill anybody in that whole scene. She just wrecks them.
He didn't have to. Yeah.
And that funny one walking away at the end. I don't know why he was walking away, but it was the funniest one. I guess he was the leader. He had the guitar on his back, and she just, like with the Buffout, just straight headshot from behind, like from the hip. Like, ow.
That's the other thing too.
She made a comment.
I think it helps you concentrate better.
She made a comment that she's good for heads.
Yeah.
So,
head counting.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've already seen her shooting skills, so she means business.
It's 10 times better on Buffout.
So the next scene kind of vacillates back and forth a little bit between Thaddeus and Maximus in their different situations. So essentially, the different factions want to talk to Xander, who is actually Thaddeus, and now Maximus intends to kill Quintus. So the different chapters are arguing to Thaddeus about who's going to kill Quintus, and we don't. This is the reason we don't allow women in our faction, and some pretty funny lines there. Max's friend steals the fusion, and Max goes to talk to Quintus and try to kill him, essentially. And basically Maximus says, "Hey, I did the right thing. I saved the children." And Quintus basically, this pisses him off. And he says, they're abominations. I should have shown you better what our objectives were, what rule number one is. Quintus says that cruel and necessary things are needed to bring back order to this world.
Demon in the snow.
And did you guys feel like they could have worked it out if it wasn't for Quintus wanting to destroy the abominations? Like, that just seemed like a line in the sand he was not willing to cross. He was very stuck on nothing else matters. We gotta kill these abominations.
Is it like rule number 1 in the Codex or something?
I don't know. That's what I was wondering. Like, it felt very strong, like very strongly opinionated about it.
In the Codex, the killing of the abominations is actually a sense of mercy killing, because they are mutations of and products of man's greed and evil. And so, since it was started by basically a religious zealot, and then so it's like the Brotherhood is all that keeps order. The Brotherhood upholds the laws of his God and things like that. So that's where a lot of that comes from. It's not necessarily we hate them because they're different. It's they're different, so they can't exist. So
Thaddeus is starting to freak out a bit at this point with the people trying to get his interest, talk to him about killing Quintus, etc. He says he's having a panic attack, and he starts mumbling all kinds of stuff.
Panic attack. What's that?
Yeah, exactly.
He's like, I'm sorry, but he's like, I'm breathing and I can't stop. I can't breathe, but I can't stop breathing.
That's a great explanation.
So Quintus asks Maximus what kind of world he would build. And Maximus says, I don't have any plans. I don't choose to do the things that I do. They just keep happening. And so Maximus killed Xander because he was going to kill the kids, and Quintus goes off about the abominations. They should have been exterminated. Quintus says they never should have been saved, and he goes for a gun, and Maximus and Quintus start a gunfight.
Worst gunfight in movie history.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's up there with some of those Star Trek.
that's
gunfights.
exactly what I was
8
thinking.
feet away from each other.
Yeah,
The blocking was so bad.
yeah.
But-
It's kind of like they're both stormtroopers or something.
And did you guys notice that Maximus held the gun sideways at
Yeah, he was
some
like-
point?
It's like, oh, from South Central, dog.
Yeah, it went gangster on him.
So basically the artifact is missing. The groups realize that the fusion has been stolen, and they are arguing amongst themselves. The woman in the one group stabs the guy right through the cheek.
He warned
and-
that if he didn't quit talking
Yeah.
like that, stabbed in the mouth.
Yep. And so a gunfight breaks out in that area while Thaddeus says, I'm out of here. And he starts walking out and trying to get the hell out of that place before he has to do anything. And so Maximus apologizes for not killing Quintus and is given the relic and said to take it as far away from here as he can. And Maximus and Thaddeus run in the desert as one of the ships goes down and crashes into the desert.
So I really liked Dane right there because he's like, I'm sorry I didn't kill Quintus, and Dane's like, don't ever sorry for not taking somebody's life, or don't ever say sorry for not taking somebody's life. And then back to the lady, the two that were arguing with Thaddeus was Yosemite was the woman and Coronado was the man. Yosemite, fucking props, dude. Like, when she stabbed him in the mouth, I'm like, yeah. Like, I hope she doesn't die. I want to see her later on in this series. Like she made me happy with that.
Yeah, she
So
seems like a well, Dane and her both feel like kind of like the voice of reason, and yeah, I really hope to see more of them.
Okay. So back to the vault and Vault 32, and Woody basically informs Steph that she has a violation for meeting outside the vault, and that is not allowed. And she thanks him for reporting it and following protocol, and basically says, you reported it, I'll take care of it. But he's looking at her like, wait a second, what are you going to do with it? And so, she is the person who decides, ultimately that, okay, you lodged your complaint about me to me, and there's no one above me, so it's not going anywhere. And so Chet is looking in one of the dresser drawers, and he finds a hidden compartment in the drawer.
Dun,
And
dun, dun.
In that drawer is a wallet with an ID, Steph's ID, which shows that she's a Canadian citizen. I didn't know if it was the point that he found the ID was what we were supposed to be most interested in, or the fact that she was Canadian had something to do with it. And then Woody asks about the experiment to Steph, and she just blows him off and says, that's just overseer stuff.
So to answer the Canadian question, it's obviously because those damn Canadians, right? Like
Blame
they're just the
Canada.
worst. I'm pretty sure they're the whole reason that all this. No, maybe Canada had something to do with it. I think it was more so that it was a pre-war ID that was the. I mean, her being Canadian, I would assume is going to be written in somewhere to have some sort of.
Yeah, because
reason.
Chet doesn't know that she was thawed out and from Vault 30.
Well, he knew that she was from Vault 31.
No, but not the full implications of it, right? Like he didn't know that all those people were from, the past. They're buds. They are, meant to be managers and stuff. He just thinks that she just happened to become overseer because of, she was just
Which
picked.
made me think about it too, because they said what was the best part of Vault 31 back then? It said something about potato salad or something
Mashed
like that.
potatoes,
right?
yeah.
Mashed potatoes. Oh, I wonder if that it's just kind of like, because pre-war mashed potatoes. I don't know, but yeah, just the fact that
You might just be hungry.
there's this guys that Vault 31 was just a regular vault like the rest of the vaults.
Well, and I mean, I don't even know if he knows what an ID is. Like, he's been born way after. Does he like, it's like seeing it and it makes like, what is a photo and her name? I don't even know if he knows what we think he's putting the dots together, but I don't know if he's doing.
And then back to the
This
Canadian
is Chet
thing, he
we're
probably
talking
doesn't even know what Canada is.
Right.
No, that might be it too. He's like, this is the United States.
Do they
What
talk
is
about
Canada?
history like that? Do they have maps?
I think it's just chalked up to there's more to Steph than what he knows and what he's been told.
Probably saw a date on it, I guess.
Well, yeah, it's definitely a pre-war ID, and I feel like I was also thinking like that is so stupid of Steph to keep a relic from her past.
I was like, why did she keep it? I don't know.
But plot device, right? But yeah, back to Woody real quick and the whole conversation. Yeah, I thought it was just kind of there was some humor in it, and one, I'm afraid for Woody.
Yeah,
bureaucracy is so strong, right? But he doesn't know where to go after that, right? He never thought like, any other option, but like, hey, well, I have to go to the highest person, but she is the highest person. And then
I saw someone committing a crime, but it was you.
And I thought it was just really funny because this goes back to like, the flaws of the vault bureaucracy. But the fact that she's like, I'll report to you on my findings.
Yeah, I love that line.
All right,
and
we got one more.
He's not saying much of anything, but he has the baby in a sling.
He's definitely suspicious though, and he makes sure to tuck that ID and everything back in its hiding place.
Well, I wonder if this is going to... Sorry, Paul,
I was going to say that I feel like this was him thinking about what Norm told him and kind of how they were working together at some point. And, Chet kind of got away from that or whatnot. And now he's kind of, hey, maybe I need to start investigating some of this stuff myself.
Norm definitely rubbed off on him as far as like making him curious about what's really going on. Because before he didn't care. He was happy to just do some cousin stuff and live in his vault. But now he's really thinking like, well, what is going on here?
Yeah. And it's kind of funny how Steph like controls him now. He's like the baby daddy here. It's been going on for episodes, but it's just so clear that Steph is, appears, I don't know if you want to say power hungry or whatnot, but
she's the alpha.
Yeah. And she's going to keep Chet in his place.
She might end up being the villain, and I'm only basing that on the eye patch.
I 100% think she's the villain already. I thought that the very moment she was telling Norm in season 1 that, your dad would have made them pay. You know what I mean? That's obviously foreshadowing, right? But yeah, no, I'm glad I didn't interrupt you, Paul, because that's the point I was just about to make. I think that this might be the straw that breaks the camel's back for Chet.
Well, you know what they say, wherever you end up is where you're meant to be.
They do say that, especially in Vault 33. All right, we got one more scene. You want to take us through it, Paul?
Yep, back to Vegas, and no one's around. Again, the ghoul and Lucy are there, and the ghoul says, hey, we should go to Freeside to see what's going on. And Lucy starts calling out for hellos, anybody there? Hey, Dad. She's calling for her dad. And then she acts all excited when she finds a broken egg. And it's a very large egg. And she says, wow, there must be some big chickens out here. And you can see for the first time, I think, the ghoul starts being worried and showing some fear into something. And so basically the ghoul and Lucy are there. And then another Deathclaw starts, or we start hearing all kinds of actions from one of the buildings and growls, etc. And the Deathclaw erupts from one of the buildings, and Lucy is still all confidence and says, whatever it is, I think we can take it. I think it'll be easy. And the ghoul has just this despair look on his face, like, you have no idea what we're up against now. And then she says, okie dokie, and end scene and end episode.
That was, I thought that was funny because as soon as she picked up the egg, I knew what it was. I was like,
You've been waiting for this.
He's been
mentioned
waiting.
this, like, you mentioned this in season 1. So how did it feel to actually see this Deathclaw?
the very first, like the opening scene was like, because I didn't know what it was. And I knew that from the previews that there was going to be a Deathclaw because it kind of showed like little silhouettes of it and stuff. But then when I saw the demon, I'm like, is that? And I was still kind of second guessing, like, it can't be a Deathclaw because this is pre-Fallout. But then it shows up. I'm just like, yeah! You know what I mean? It's like they did the thing. You know what I mean? So I was super excited. And then just like, I love the way that they're treating it. The fact that it scares the hell out of the ghoul tells you something, right? And then also it's just kind of like, not only was this like, what you're seeing in his eyes is he's calling back to Alaska, right? He's like, oh, it's this thing again, right? Like he's scared shitless.
It's
And
this
then
thing,
also-
and there's more of them.
Well, I
Yeah.
wanted to know, was that the same one? But we see there's an egg, but is it
Well,
the
in the
same
game-
one from that he encountered the first time?
In the game, there's multiple, and then you do come across like Deathclaw nests where they have eggs and things like that. And they come various sizes and such. That one, these particular ones were large ones, like they're, these are full grown.
So
And-
why didn't they kill the Elvis ghouls was my question at this point.
I don't know, probably
Elvis
'cause they're rot-
ghouls, yeah. So, but is the ghoul, should he be worried then? Because would the Deathclaw be after him, or So
Maybe it's
That's
a
cool. I
night,
think
a night versus day thing. I don't know.
It's potentially that. I think that might be something in the game too. They come out more at night. I'm not gonna say for sure. It's been, like I said, it's been a second since I played the games, but I think more so it's like it was in his turf, because when you're playing the game, like if you end up going to where there's a Deathclaw, it doesn't matter if you run away or not. If they see you, they're coming after you, and they're fast and they're lethal, and you have to run. And 9 times out of 10, you're taking a lot of damage if you escape. So that's kind of their lethality. But I also kind of like the Jurassic Park vibe it gave when you saw the talons like opening the door first, and then it's popping up, and then another cool visual thing was as it's like standing up and like showing you its full size, it's like breaking the top of the door
Thought
jam.
that was
and everything.
funny. Yeah.
And then of course, you mentioned that Lucy was like, oh, we could take it. But even Lucy at the end, when she saw it like stand up and saw its full size, she was like, she looked a little worried herself.
It wasn't a confident okie dokie, right?
Was that
And-
okie doke?
And I just want to say, like, man, the special effects are incredible, like seamless, from this Deathclaw to the ship that crashes behind Maximus and Thaddeus. Like, this, just the special effects are just flawless. I don't know. They spent a lot of money and a lot of time on this. So just gotta tip my hat to them.
Definitely.
So
a well-done
another
show.
question I have at this point is, which ship crashed? Was that Quintus on that ship and some of the factions, or do we not know? Was that a result of the fighting that was going on board?
Well, definitely, there was a skirmish that broke out between all the sides, right? We saw Yosemite stab Coronado. There was already, like some violence and then it broke out throughout the whole thing. I do not believe it's Quintus, because if you remember, Quintus was locked in the room with the chain. Maximus locked him in his room. So I don't think Quintus was on the ship.
But for now, I do have a question. So does anyone have a top moment of the episode for him? What was your top moment for the episode?
The schools was for me. I mean, I really enjoyed them, slicking back their hair and then their ghouls and stuff. I thought it was very interesting, and I thought it was really funny.
I agree, and not necessarily for the kings themselves. I think that was kind of comical, right? You're seeing a bunch of like different Elvises. You got Jailhouse Rock. You got different areas of Elvis just getting blasted away.
Yeah.
But why it was my favorite scene is because we saw Lucy let loose. Lucy let Lucy. And I thought that shit was like, I was like, yes, finally, like no more like bureaucracy. Oh, let's talk this out. She's like, oh, they're just ghouls anyway. And she just starts obliterating them, like probably way better than the ghoul would have done himself. You know what I mean? So, or at least as good as he would have done. So that's why that was my favorite scene. And it was funny. So
Yeah, that one was great. It's my favorite too. I mean, but I do want to say that I really liked, really just when Thaddeus was like trying to, be convinced to get in the suit, and he's just like, well, I got to get back to work. So, you got to get on here. Shoo, you got to get out of here.
Collecting his bottle caps.
Yeah, like, okay.
Like, all right, business as usual.
And no, Sydney, he's just a floor manager here, so can't help you with that.
I think for me, the best moment was just Lucy being on drugs. I just felt like that was so funny, and it kind of led to a lot of different things in the plot. But yeah, I could not stop laughing at that scene, and she was just great doing that. Great acting. So I'll say she was also my MVP for the episode, because I just thought like she was just the comedic timing and the sincere moments of like, well, I don't know how I feel about my dad. Like a lot of that was great, and then also the action too. So she's just firing on all cylinders, like I like to say. But she was my MVP for the episode. What about you guys? Who was your favorite?
And all her body ticks and just
all the well placed okie dokies
for real,
and fudges. Yeah.
To me, Maximus stole the show just because I think, if you listen to earlier episodes of this podcast, you'll hear me talking about, we're not sure who he is, what his motives are, all that stuff. I think his motives showed who he was in this episode, other than him not killing Quintus, which he could have probably solved a lot of future problems. But, I thought he showed that he's a noble guy, and he took that cold fusion, and we're going to see what he does with it.
It was really hard to pick for me. I mean, there was so many good, like you mentioned, Lucy was great. I thought Dane was really great in this. Maximus was really great. I had a hard time picking, but I think ultimately I decided to go with the underdog, and I picked Yosemite just for stabbing that dude in the face. Just so sick of it. Just like, and then she's like carrying him around like like on a swivel. So I'm going to give it to Yosemite.
Yeah, I'm surprised you didn't say the Deathclaw. I mean, I thought that's what it was just going to be yours automatically.
Well, if we're talking about, that's not necessarily a character, like it's more of it's an enemy, but yeah, that'll be an honorable mention, the Deathclaw for sure.
For me, I mean, Chet's my hero, so I just want to live his life.
Get bossed around by a sexy chick with the eye patch.
Yeah, man. Sugar mama.
Why not?
Goodness gracious. Well, that ends the show for us tonight. Thank you for listening to the Cinema So Far podcast. Before you go, I wanted to ask one question. What would you do if you woke up addicted to drugs? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to follow us on all of our social media platforms. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell.
And that's a wrap on this week's episode of Cinema
So Far.